Hello, crochet crafters. If you are new to crocheting, I'm going to give you a couple of tips for watching videos on YouTube. First of all, if you don't have the same size crochet hook as what the instructions call for on your project, you can have a similar size hook, or you can adjust the yarn for a larger or smaller hook. So for example, if it calls for a 6 and I have an 8 here, so I have a bulkier yarn that I'm going to use with my 8. Just keep in mind, whatever project you're making, if you're using a larger hook and a thicker yarn, then your blanket's going to be larger. And if you're using a smaller hook and smaller yarn, your blanket and your stitches will be smaller. So that's just a quick tutorial. The other thing is you want to make sure that you have a yarn that is a machine wash and tumble dry. This particular yarn that I have right here is a acrylic, but it is a machine wash tumble dry, and not all yarns, especially wool, are machine washable. So if you do want it to be machine washable, make sure you check that out before you get going with your project. The other thing is, if you are doing what's called a magic circle and you're having problem with magic circles, I'm going to show you, you don't have to do a magic circle. You can do what's called a chain 2 method. So whenever you have a project and they say, now let's create the magic circle with your hands and blah, blah, blah. Nope, you don't have to do that. We're going to do a chain 2. So to get your yarn onto your hook, you're going to wrap it around and you're going to hold it just like this with your 2 fingers. And then you're going to wrap it around and you're going to slide the first one over the second. And that is basically not considered a stitch. That's just you getting your yarn on your crochet hook. Now, another little tip is make sure that it's not too loose or not too tight. And when you're doing your stitches, try to do your stitches evenly, because if you have one that's tight and one that's not so tight, your project may look funny depending on what you're making. So you want to try to do uniform stitches the best that you can, and you'll get better as you crochet. So to do a chain 2 method without doing a magic circle is you just chain 1, and you want to kind of leave that loose, that first chain. I know I just said, you know, kind of have it average, but if you have it a little loose, you can work in that chain. So you're chaining 2, 1, 2. And when it calls for working in a magic circle, instead of working in the magic circle, you're just going to work in that first chain. So it tells you, use a magic circle. And let's say it says to do, you know, 6 single crochets in that. So you're going to do 6 single crochets all the way around. And that basically, that first chain 1 is, quote, your magic circle. So I hope that makes sense. So, and then when they pull the magic circle tight, and they say, oh, now let's pull the magic circle tight. Well, you've already got it nice and tight because you just did a chain 2 method. So that's kind of a little secret for that. The other thing is, if you don't like to use place markers and stitches as you're doing a circle pattern, there's a really quick solution for that too. You can always do, when they say, you know, when you finally reach the end of your circle, you can do a slip stitch and a chain 1 method. So whenever they call for you to do a circle, if you do a chain 1 method, that's going to already kind of give you that rise that you need right there. So as you go around the circle doing whatever the pattern is, you'll kind of know where that pattern began. Another little secret is, if you have a tail, the end of your work is considered a tail. And a lot of people like to cut them off, or a lot of people work them in. But if you can always grab it with your yarn that you're working with. And what you do is you just take the tail and the yarn that you're working with, and you just pretend that's one. And so what you're doing there is you're just working your tail into your work. And that way you don't have to go back and really use a darning needle to kind of make that happen. So as you can see, I kind of work that tail into my work, and I only have a small piece of fabric that I would have to cut off from that. So that's just a couple of tips and tricks when you're working with different patterns that you're finding on YouTube. And please check back with me on lori'shandiwork.com because I am doing some really cute crochet cards next week. And I appreciate you watching. Thank you.